Here we are again, Sidebar podcast, talking about what it means to be hanging on to hope during the holidays. And today we want to talk specifically about the area of finances. We were even looking at a question that talked about what if financial stress contributes to the increase of anxiety and pressure in this season. And we were all sort of like, yeah, we know what that's like. And I wholeheartedly believe there's decisions that we make in the holiday season that if we're not careful, they bring stress in the new year, because guess what? The credit card bill is coming. Like gifts are supposed to be a blessing. They're supposed to be a good thing, not a burden. They're supposed to be ways to show love and appreciation and even like a knowledge of a person. And yet it's become this thing of obligation and expectation, if we're not careful, to be like, well, I have to have a gift because if Danny gives me a gift, I have to have a gift to give you back. And we've not really talked about, are we exchanging gifts? And so there's a pressure. And then there's just expectations and there's worry. But then more than that, a lot of times we're spending money we don't have. And so then we carry this debt into a new year that we're like, we want a fresh start, but we still got to pay off December before we can ever get to a fresh start in a new year. So I know you guys know what I'm talking about. My personal experience of this just got so complicated when we started having children. My wife's family, her sisters, they started having children. My sister started having children. And you went from like, well, now there's like 5 of us. Now there's like 10 of us. Now there's like 20 of us. And like, we can't keep doing what we used to do because this just got out of hand. Do you guys know what I'm talking about, or am I all alone in this?
It quickly gets out of hand as the clan expands.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have 4 generations on my mom's side.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we understand the kids and grandkids and the great-grandkids
Absolutely.
that we ended up being like, no gifts. We're spending time as a family because that's what Christmas is all about, right?
That's an option.
Yeah.
Not everybody likes that option.
Yeah. But
Yeah. I feel like there are so many ways you could plan and most of us don't.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned something too, back to conversations, like how do you just initiate a conversation about what we are or aren't doing as a family? I think the Western culture of how we think about the holiday season, and particularly around Christmas and gift giving, and some of us have the gift of gift giving, which is a beautiful
It's a real thing.
It's a beautiful thing, and I love being recipients of those who have that gift. But also, what I wouldn't love is to know that they're going in debt over a gift that they're giving me. I don't need your gift at the expense of you going into debt. And that's probably just a real conversation. You know, Danny, you were mentioning that this is your first holiday season as a young professional. It's your kind of first out of college working job. You're on your own now. You've got bills to pay. You got real responsibility. Like, welcome to real adulting.
Congratulations, and I'm sorry.
thank you. It's so much fun.
But like, you know, your ability to give gifts in this season just maybe looks different than even in a past season for you when you were living under your parents' roof and that kind of stuff. And then to your point, like we're in a growing family right now with littles, and there's like, are we buying gifts for all the siblings and spouses and now all the expanding children? Yeah, the just borns. So I don't know. How have you handled that through the years though?
Well, I'm old enough that there weren't really apps that you could use to work through these. You actually had to have real life conversation. You had to pick up a telephone, and my wife had to talk to her family, me talk to my family, to just say, can we just come to like an agreement? We're not going to show up Christmas morning or Christmas night and be like, oh no, they got gifts and we didn't, or vice versa. And then you have this like guilt gift. Like I didn't give them a gift and they had one for us, or vice versa. And so we had to have conversation. And I just actually recommend conversation's a good thing. And there's nothing wrong with, what were you talking about? Elfster? What was that?
Oh yeah, Elfster.
I thought about Napster, but Elfster, where you plan, like there's Elfster, but in the old days when we just had a phone, we would have a conversation. But there's nothing wrong with having a plan ahead of time. That's my whole point in this, hanging on to hope during the holidays is to say, plan for what's going to come. And one of those is financial plan. So, I mean, literally leaning into things like have a budget and try to stick to it. And so what that means is going into the holidays, knowing what you have to spend and trying to stick to it. Some websites I was reading, they talked about using cash instead of charging. And I'm like, I mean, were those written way back in 2019? Because how do you do that with Prime? It's impossible. So like there's a reality check that we need to have, but we've got to learn to limit what we spend. And there's this old Saturday Night Live skit. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it with Steve Martin called Don't Buy Stuff You Can't Afford.
Yeah.
Don't buy stuff
That's
you can't
classic.
afford. That's not the way we do Christmas typically. But what a novel concept. Don't buy stuff you can't afford. You know, I think about practical things like just because something's on sale doesn't mean you're going to save.
But
Like,
it's Black Friday.
Totally. And so I think there's just little things that we have to remember, that the holiday season is a microcosm sometimes of some of the worst parts of our society. Consumerism, materialism, greed run rampant. And at the same time, it's a snapshot of the best parts of us. It brings out generous hearts. We've been created in the image of a generous God. And there's something, like for me, and you're probably, Brian, experiencing this, there's something about having children and giving them gifts that taps into the depths of it's better to give than to receive.
Wow.
And there's something about a Christmas season that can potentially create that if we lean into it the right ways. But so often we fall into the patterns of our world and we overspend and we overcommit. And then all we're left with are credit card bills, regret, and a sense of overwhelming stress as we launch into a new year. And I just want to say, it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah. There are some things we could do differently. Get a plan, get a budget, think through ahead of time, and have conversations to avoid all of that kind of stuff. I don't do it perfectly, but I do have a very, very money conscious wife who's sort of Dave Ramsey to her core. And that's a gift. But like, that's one sort of set of ways we've done that. What have you two learned? How have you approached that?
Yeah, I think just looking at it from the young adult standpoint, we've got parties galore coming up.
Yep.
And my best advice has always been, why don't we suggest funny white elephant gift? Now you're only buying one gift for maybe a group of 10 plus friends, and it has a price cap on it, and it's just something funny. That way it limits your spending. You're not buying for
Absolutely.
10 different friends now, and yet you're all getting together.
Yep.
Another take that I'm having this year is I'm really leaning into the love languages of my friends. What do they actually value? Because for most people, it's probably not the most expensive gift you can get them. It's probably either spending quality time with them or something that comes from the heart. And so I've been looking at my own gifts of, well, I can draw, so I can create stuff for my friends that's much more valuable than if I were to go pick up, I don't know, a mug, a candle, and a pair of socks. That's what I usually do.
The gift is not in getting something. It's literally in, you get me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you understand me. You're paying attention.
It's so
That's
much
great.
more about a friendship than about what we get them. Yeah.
Yeah, two thoughts on this from my corner. I really feel like the gift, you mentioned this, and I think maybe the greatest gift some of us could give our families this year is the gift of a conversation. Mm-hmm. And the conversation to say, like, hey, maybe some of us, maybe there's been job loss in the mix.
Absolutely.
Maybe there's kids that are in college for the first time.
Living that pain.
The financial situations are just different for people in this year particularly. So the gift of a conversation could be huge, because that could then drive the plan that helps us avoid all of the tailspin of a post-holiday regret and not kicking off the new year with a real sense of like, we lived this holiday season well. And I was mentioning to you guys before we started recording that our family years ago started using this app called Elfster.
I have never heard of Elfster.
Well, just go look it up. You can download the app, Elfster. It's a free gift to you from me. But we started using it a number of years ago. And two thoughts with it. One, it did help us forge the conversation. And that was a gift, because you just don't know until you have the conversation. Is mom going to be super upset about this? Like, that we're not? Because my mom is great at giving gifts. And it's one of the things that she loves to do. And she loves to see us enjoying that. And honestly, it's fun to receive from them because they are thoughtful. But we got down to creating a list. And so each person creates a list, and there's an exchange that happens with one person. There's $100 cap for us with the siblings, and the parents are involved in that as well. And so that's worked really well. But even to the point where the further conversations have been like, do we want to keep doing this? Because it actually just feels like an exchange of $100, because I tell you the 5 things that I want on my Elfster list. Yeah. You buy them online through the Amazon link that I put into the app, and then I could actually just buy that for myself. That's actually, in my mind, I'm like in this weird spot on the gift giving thing and how we've kind of adopted. Is it actually even a gift exchange, or is it I just told you what I want?
Yeah.
Versus to your point, that I'm thoughtfully thinking about somebody out of a desire. And I shared with you guys just that mindfulness of even the wise men bringing Jesus something. Jesus didn't come out of the womb and say, where's my gold, frankincense, and myrrh? These wise men made a journey knowing that the Savior is going to be born, and the gift-giving concept coming out of that there's an intentional mindset that we're bringing something to the person we love or adore out of a thoughtfulness and a generosity that comes truly from our hearts. So
I love that. And as you were talking, I thought, sometimes if we're the one to initiate the conversation, hey, what do you think about, breaking those old habits of we all charge it to the credit, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes when we're the one who initiates, the response is, oh, you too? I thought I was the only one who struggled
Totally.
with that. And you create the opportunity for people to be like, oh man, I was so stuck in this cycle of obligation.
I don't want to disappoint someone.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, thank you so much. And we don't have to do things that we used to. We can mix it up and free our families from that. And then I think one of the things that is so revolutionary and counterintuitive of the scriptures is not only do I want to talk about making a plan, a budget of what you save, but I would also say, would you prayerfully consider, what can I give this season?
Right.
To tap into that thing that's deep within every one of us, whether we're living it or not, of generosity and the blessing of being a part of giving. And so often in a holiday season, it doesn't matter how much we desire to give, our decisions to spend have almost eliminated that from being a significant option in our lives. And I would just say, rethink that and back up a little bit and say, what would I like to give? In order to do that, how do I limit the spending to be involved in something significant that makes a difference? Not just like, when our kids were young, the toy that you give them that is so awesome for 2 hours. And then by the next day, you're like, they've already forgotten about it and moved on to a cardboard box that was cool. And so it's like investments in things that matter are created, the opportunities created when we limit the things we spend on. And it creates room to be generous and to be like God has created us to be.
Yeah, I love that. Even the idea that maybe the greatest gift we could give is investing in the idea of the kingdom of heaven coming here on the earth. And if this whole season is about the gift of God who gave us his only son in human form, and now he leaves it to us to be the ones that invest into the kingdom, like, where are we sowing in the kingdom good in this season? When we think about year end, that it's not an obligation, but it is our joy to give to causes and needs that bring the kingdom of heaven here on the earth a little bit more. So I'm really thinking about that as I think about year end as well, but also thinking about our holiday season and Christmas. I love Rachel Cruz, Dave Ramsey's daughter. She has this quote that says, if it's not in the budget, it shouldn't be in your cart, your proverbial cart, or your actual Target cart, or under the tree. So that's a good reminder for you. If it's not in your budget, it shouldn't be in your cart or under the tree. That'll keep you out of debt in this season.
That's gold. Speaking of gold, I thought of a resource, Andy Stanley's book. It's a little old now, from 2004, called Fields of Gold. Is such a significant book, really small, in understanding stewardship, which has all of these capacities of both being a good giver, but also a receiver and a thankful person, and cultivating what he would call this living like basically God has created us to live, so we can enjoy the blessings that only God could give. And so there's a great resource that you could dig into, read probably in one sitting. Honestly, it's so short, but Fields of Gold by Andy Stanley is a good resource on this topic.
Yeah.
And I think I love what you guys hit on about finances and what you can give, because you and Russell, actually, I think it was last year around this time, you were teaching our team about, there's tithes, but what can you do that's generous? What can you give over and above? And I feel like this year has been like, I got my tithe down. I got the 10%. But I'd love to be able to be, this my first year that I can go above that and give even more with Giving Tuesday around the corner. How can I lean into that this year as having a full-time job for the first time, and how can I budget that out? So.
And even Giving Tuesday is a microcosm of a one day that taps into something that should be like our whole life.
Yeah.
We think Thanksgiving, the one day a year we give thanks.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's a catalytic moment to live out thankfulness. Giving Tuesday is the same thing, a catalytic moment to maybe propel us into living generous lives.
We can do it well.
Absolutely.
I think we can. So here's to everyone having conversations, giving
Yes.
the gift of a conversation that
Yes.
leads to great planning, that leads to no debt coming into a new year. May your spending be well, and may it also include bringing the kingdom of heaven a little more to earth.
There you go. We agree.